Hey, what's up everybody? Radx here, the one from 72, the Ultra Neutral, and today I am going to be sharing with you the 2-hour interview that was done over on the Truth Quest channel. Very good channel. He has some really good content. I encourage you to go over there and go watch his channel, watch some of the stuff that he's got on there. He's got some of his guests are very good and interesting to listen to. If you already seen the 2-hour video, the interview from over there on my channel, I've put it back up on here with it being re-edited. In other words, I put pictures and videos and stuff you haven't seen yet before is going to be on this interview, so you can actually watch through it and you'll see different pictures and new evidence that I bring forward from the portal the portal stone over in Utah. I talk about new details about alien, what happened with the alien contact that happened with me. There's also going to be talks about the time hack, of course. We'll be talking about some new information on the time hack. We're going to be talking about more stuff about 1972. In fact, the host of the show, Aaron, actually taught me something about 1972 that I didn't know about. So you're going to learn some more new evidence on 1972, which I actually put in the evidence and facts on the video. At the time when he told me about it, I said, hey, I had no idea, I didn't know anything about it, but I looked it up, of course, and then I posted the facts on this video so you can actually see the evidence of what he's talking about that happened in 1972, as well as I do a $48 challenge per viewer so I have a challenge on this video that I will pay one person, just one person, $48 for one item. And you'll have to watch the video to actually see what I'm talking about. The video's been on his channel for a couple of weeks now, and not one person has taken up the challenge to get the $48. And you can ask Aaron, yes, I will pay the $48. And so yeah, that's on here. As well as I talk about the reptilians on here. There's going to be some new information and stuff that you may not have heard about the reptilians. And of course, I'll be talking about them as well. If all of that stuff, of all this stuff that we talk about on this video, you know, of course, things about Trump and everything else and the time hack and all that stuff, we even talk about Elvis Presley. So I don't know how much more insane of a 2-hour video you really can get. But however, all the stuff that I talk about, of course, is backed up through factual evidence. And on his channel, when the video is posted over there, it was just a live stream video. I wasn't actually able to show the facts and the evidence. Well, now that I've brought the video over to my channel, able to post it up so you guys can rewatch it if you haven't watched it already, and you can see the facts posted with it. Because you know, guys, if there's no facts, there's no point in actually talking about it or showing anything. It's just, that's not how I operate. It's not how I work. In fact, the alien experience that I had with the reptilians, before that, when people would tell me about, you know, that they saw UFOs or they had an alien experience, I always took it with a grain of salt, because getting a first-hand or even a second-hand information about an eyewitness thing is just not good enough for me. I need to see some type of factual evidence. That's how I work, and that's how I present things to people. Also, I'm going to start trying to put up 12-minute videos again, so those are going to start coming back out. Of course, we won't be talking about the simulation. We're just going to be talking mainly about the time hack and aliens and stuff. But yes, I'm going to try to put up 12-minute videos. I will try to do them daily. I can't make promises, but I will try to push up a daily video, because I've been getting a lot of requests of people asking for the daily videos again. You know, what happened? It was great when you were getting those 12-minute videos every day. So yes, I'm going to try to bring back the 12-minute daily videos. So I hope you guys will enjoy that content as well. And of course, my videos are not monetized. I don't make any money. I don't want any money. You've seen it on my videos many, many times that I don't sell information. I don't require any donations or anything like that. This information is literally 100% for the human race advancement to move forward. Otherwise, it does not matter. I don't need the Anunnaki dollars. Like, I bought a microphone, of course, but it just, for some reason, wasn't working with my computer, and I have a top-end computer, and it was a pretty damn good microphone, so I have to figure that out. But yeah, the little things like that, you know, like with me going on trips and stuff, and and getting better equipment and trying to get better audio for you guys and stuff to enjoy. But I don't really care, and I'm not out asking for money or begging for donations or asking for anything like that at all. Now, other people who do that on channels, I'm perfectly okay with that. In fact, I even donate to other people's channels because I can understand that's what, that's kind of helps what keeps them driven. But literally everything that I'm doing is on me, and I'm trying to share as much important information as I can because that is what my path is. That's what has been bestowed upon me. Otherwise, I never would have had the gift of having my mind unlocked. Like, that's literally, it is my burden that I must carry, that I must push forward. I must keep getting the information out for as long as they'll allow me to keep putting out the information. You guys already know I'm talking about when I say they. And with that, guys, enjoy the video and enjoy the rest of your time.
Welcome back to Truth Quest. My name is Aaron Moriarty. I will be your host, and we're going to go on a quest for truth together. And today, friends, we've got two friends to talk to. We have Rat X and 1010. Welcome to Truth Quest.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, thank you for having us.
You're welcome. So Rat X was the first one to talk, and 1010 was the second person vocalizing. Well, welcome to the show. And I got to say, I watched one of your videos, Rat X, with 1010, and it was the one where you went out into Utah and you went to go and you discovered a portal. That was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, so it all goes back to 2017, and I literally was not into the whole alien movement or anything like that. Like a lot of people will say that, it's a good possibility there's aliens out there. Who's to say, that why would we think that everything is just created for us, just on Earth? It's a good possibility there's alien stuff. So I was always open to the idea, but I was never a UFO watcher. I never was looking for aliens. I don't look for ghosts. I didn't even believe in any of that stuff. Literally, it just was not my thing. I don't get spooked out easy. Mm-hmm. I don't even watch horror movies or stuff. I like sci-fi, but it's just not my thing. So in 2017, I was in my karate school because I'm a martial arts teacher and I own a school. And I've been doing it for 20 years. And I've actually lived in my school. And a lot of people don't know that, but a lot of senseis, a lot of them actually do live in their school. Just like you find these, some of these restaurants, and the Italians did it, and the Chinese did it. A lot of them do it. They live in their business. So I was sleeping on the floor one night in my school, and I'm going to make this real short just to kind of cut it down so that everybody understands how we got to Utah. I was sleeping in my school one night, and it's really locked up real tight, and I had ADT, and I showed proof that I had ADT on at the time, and that I had had a bill from the time that this happened, and I show where the doors are. You can't get through because it's bolt locked where you just can't get through. Well, I fell asleep one day, and I woke up at 3 a.m. in the morning to some sound, and come to find out there was these footprints all over my floor, that dirty footprints. I went to go investigate because there's no dirt around this building, but I went to investigate the rest of the building, and there was nothing. I went to sleep. I didn't think nothing of it. Literally didn't think nothing of the footprints. I thought, that's weird. Why is there dirt there? But it's 3 a.m. I'm kind of groggy. I get up the next morning, and I really look at these things, and I'm like, this is not human. And it freaked me out a little bit. I was never afraid. And that's the thing what people need to understand. I never had any fear whatsoever. Anything bad happened to me. One, like I said, I am a martial artist, so I handle things a little bit differently. My mindset is different. I don't go in panic mode. I just try to investigate, understand the situation, and then make my approach from there. So as I never felt like if the thing wanted to do something to me, if it wanted to hurt me, it would have hurt me when I was sleeping. So anyhow, I kept looking for. I did video it, so I have video on my channel where I actually videoed the footprints where you can see them. You can see the marks on the wall, and I didn't understand why the marks were on the wall. I thought that maybe I could tell that the footprints were we're like reptilian. And this is going to be a spot where a lot of people are going to listen to this and they're going to, a lot of people will view me as the enemy. And that's fine, I understand, okay? And because the things that I will present to people are going to be coming from a different perspective.
Radex, could you, it sounds like you're a little bit muffled. Can you turn up?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I probably should have said something sooner.
Can you hear me better now?
Oh yeah, much better. Oh, that's much better.
I'm sorry.
No.
So there's marks on my wall, and I could never understand what those marks were. We thought maybe they're, because your mind automatically goes to religion, right? Because I used to be a very religious person. I was very educated in the Bible as well as a devout Christian. That's just not the case anymore. So my mind went right to, is the devil in my skull? Did the devil come here? It just didn't make any sense. But I thought maybe it was horns or something that scraped on the wall, but there's no scrapes, just the way the stuff was on there. It was a weird substance. I could never figure it out. My mind was unlocked. And this is going to sound very bizarre to a lot of people because they just won't understand it. And it's very hard to grasp it. But my mind was literally opened up. What this preacher did to me was open my mind up to seeing things that most humans are not seeing. I started noticing all these things with 1972 and I was like, and I wasn't looking for it. In fact, I even covered everything up in my school I covered the story up for 3 years. I didn't talk about it because if you talk about something like this, it'll shut your business down. They'll say, this guy's a nutter. Don't take your kids or anybody go learn karate from him because he believes aliens are in his school. So I kept it quiet. I didn't say anything for a very long time. But in the beginning of 2020, I couldn't deal with it anymore. I'm like, I have to get this message out. And the message was 1972, there is a problem because of all this stuff that was going on. So as I'm putting videos up on 1972 and what I thought was a time glitch because I thought we were in a simulation all year long, towards the end of the year, I get contacted by Tenten. And she says, hey, I'll let her tell that part of the story. So go ahead, Tenten. Tell them what you said when you contacted me.
Yeah, I had a few experiences. One in particular, I was trying to find answers to for one of the experiences that I had, and I came across Rat's his YouTube channel, and we started talking. I think it was like December 12th or something like that, and I just kind of explained to him my experience, and as we talked further, there was a realization, I think a few weeks later on, where I realized I was actually in the room at a different point in time, like in 2020 or the end of 2019, the beginning of 2020, and saw what happened to him and his experience. And I was able to tell him that it was actually a tail that the entity had that was on top of him. And at first, I thought that there were ribs that were encasing him while this being was on top of him, but it was actually wings. And I'm not really into the extraterrestrial part of things. I mean, this is like a new thing for me. So it really opened my mind to a lot of things, but that was kind of like the beginning of our connection with one another. Since then, we've obviously felt connected to each other because of, me seeing what he experienced and me being in the room while it happened. We're still trying to figure out as to why I was in the room or why I saw what I saw or had to be shown this. So here we are now talking to you about it and put us on a path to figure out more about, the significance of 1972, portals, numerology, the things that are occurring now in this natural reality, which has been manipulated through a time hack.
Yeah, so let me explain something real fast so people can understand when we're talking about time hack. Here's what people need to understand. It feels like I was dead set last year. I really believe we're in a simulation because there's no way possible all the things that happened in 1972 could possibly have happened in that 1 year. So everything was squished in 1 year. So I'm like, okay, this must be a pivotal point for when the simulation began. And I explained all of that stuff all throughout the year last year, how a simulation works and how that could actually happen. However, the whole thing with the alien just did not, it was always a stopping point for me. There was one thing it kind of like really was like, just didn't make any sense. So how could you tell the difference between a simulation, a simulated reality versus a natural reality where there's a frequency that's blocking your mind from seeing certain things and manipulating things in your mind to see other things, as well as the fact that I'm sure that most people probably agree it's possible for time travel. I mean, come on, we're talking Nazi Germany way back in the day, the bell. So, I mean, it's not a new concept. It's not a new thing, and Nikola Tesla with his things on time travel. This is something that humans have been trying to do for a long time. But if you're saying that humans are already tried to do it, well, if you got beings from, other planets and stuff that are millions of years advanced past us, then they already have that technology. They already understand how it works. So if they're able to manipulate time on Earth, and I don't mean the entire universe, I mean just the manipulating time on Earth, because of whatever reason they had to do. They had to put a pivotal point in time when they changed things and they meshed things together. When they did that, they had to use a frequency to scramble people's minds so that they would not look at what happened. And that's how we get this whole time hack thing. So now back to what Tenten was saying during that time when she was there in the school. When I started talking to her and she told me about, that she had this alien experience, and she said she saw this alien on top of this person, and there was like this tail that was going into this person's head, and it was doing this thing, and these ribs were encased around it. I went to and looked at my video, and I was like, oh my God, that's the marks on the wall that we could not explain. That is, I challenge anybody to this day, recreate the marks on the wall. Even the angle of the way the marks are on the wall cannot be recreated. It just cannot be done. And the substance that was on there, and I have testimony from somebody who actually came there and saw the substance, saw the stuff, and she was just like, there's no way possible. And you can hear that interview too. But the substance that was on the wall was like 3 parts of different substance. In other words, it was kind of like this earthy, chalky substance, but underneath of it was this gray film. So it was like double layered, and on the outside of the entire substance was this gold dust that was laid inside of it. So it's just a very weird substance. So what I'm imagining, what happened was the being, when it came through the door, when it came through the portal into my school, the tail smacked the wall. Now, these beings are not, they're very, very smart. This being left those marks there because they knew I would investigate. They knew right now, to this point where I'm talking to you right now, this is how intelligent these things are. They know your path in life. They know where you're going. So they trust certain people with certain information. They do certain things. Like when you hear these people who have like all these other alien experiences, what I used to never really get into, but now I kind of pay attention more to them. And they talk about things that are going on. Well, a lot of the aliens knew that they were going to be talking about what they're talking about, because then you have people who never talk about stuff. So there's information that's being shared with the rest of humans for a reason. So when she told me about that, and I said, okay, so that was a tail. And then I started looking more into the reptilian races, and come to find out there's draconians, which have big wings. And I was like, and I told her, I said, oh my God, those weren't ribs, because it sounded weird. Those weren't ribs wrapped around me. Those were wings. Right? It's draconian wings. It's the tail, the wings, and the feet. Now, it never meant me any harm. It never did anything to hurt me. It unlocked my mind. That is positive. That is not a negative. So with all of that, so that's what got me and 1010 connected. And then towards the end of last year, we were talking, somebody else contacted us and she said she had all this land. And I'll go ahead and let 1010 go ahead and tell that story.
Yeah, it was actually, I think she contacted you through the channel, and you were talking to her originally, and you were like, "Oh, you should talk to." I think we call her now the gatekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, "Oh, you would get along because she, you know, has a lot of similarities, and she likes a lot of the same things, same experiences that you and I have had, like just weird synchronicities between you and I throughout our lives." And you were like, "You should get to talking to her. She has this property, and she has a lot of interesting things to say." So I was like, "Okay." So I got in contact with her, and we started talking, and she started talking about her property, which it was interesting because she sent an email to both of us and was just kind of like talking about this experience that she had out there on her property, and she wanted us to come out because she felt that there was things that were happening on her property, and that
There was a portal, and she wanted us.
Yeah, there
to
was a
come
portal.
find it. And that was what they wanted.
Yes, which was weird because I don't think at that point we were really considering looking for a portal. You were just trying to find answers as to what happened in your school, like where this alien came from.
Yeah,
and
I literally just
came. Curious.
Yeah, I just came back from a trip driving all the way from Cleveland, Ohio, all the way out to Scottsdale, Arizona to go to Alcor. And if you guys go back and you watch my videos on my first channel, in the beginning of 2020, the very first video, as I talk about Alcor and the significance of it, and that it was founded in 1972. And that has a whole lot to do with all of this as well. With the Alcor and going out there and finding out about the Alcor star. And then 1010, when I was talking to her, come to find out she could tell you about her whole thing with the Alcor star and all that, and how she's actually has it, on her, like she's branded with it in freckles on her arm, and everything, just birthdays, all this stuff is very, very weird. And yeah, she contacted us about coming out there because here's something a lot of people don't know yet and don't understand. But I predicted the election in like all of it, all the way down to the T of how it was going to happen and what was going to be the outcome. And everybody told me that it was never going to happen because they said that, Trump was going to win. And I said, I agree. It does look like he has more. But this is what happened in 1972. And anybody can look up the evidence in 1972. And if you do the opposite and you reverse it in 2020, because I have a whole bunch of stuff that I put online where I showed that things that began or ended in that year began again or ended in 2020, connecting the 2 years, meaning that they are both connected. There's no way possible. The odds are 1,000,000,001 for that many things to actually happen. And because of that prediction and other predictions that I made that all came true, all of them, almost every single one of them came true. I think that's why we were contacted by the gatekeeper. That and she works for one of the alphabet agencies. Would you agree, 1010?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Tell them, go ahead and talk about the rest of your experience, 1010, with the gatekeeper. Because, yeah, she tried to get it. She asked us to come out. She told us that she had a portal. And I even, and I'm going to let you get to it, but I even said in my videos, because I was documenting my trip, I said, I don't have the money and I don't have the time to go out there, but I'm going to go ahead and take some time off work and I'm going to go because I know I have to be there. Like, I have to go now. And I told 1010, you have to go now too. And neither one of us was ready, but we did. And when we did, everything lined up perfectly for 1,000,000,001 chances that Alcor star would line up on the portal stone that I found when we got out there. And it was confirmed by 1010. So she's going to go ahead and tell you guys what happened with her and her experience with the gatekeeper and how come we thought that it's a very good possibility she's either CIA or NSA. And I mean, it is what it is. And I definitely, my life was the whole trip, towards the end of the trip, my life was in jeopardy. Believe it or not, whether you guys want to believe it or not, but 1010 will confirm a lot of the stuff that was talked about my death to 1010. Like,
the gatekeeper was talking about my death to her in many different ways when she wasn't with me. But then when she came back around, she kept calling me the Scorpion King, kept trying to stroke my ego. It was very, very bizarre. And once we found the portal, that was it. When we've confirmed that portal, that this stone is the portal. By the way, that property out in Utah belongs to the government. It doesn't even belong to her. It belongs to the government. There was a bear in the cave. The bear didn't attack me when I climbed up there to go inside the cave. And the bear is actually in the Alcor constellation. So I'm going to go ahead and let 1010 talk because, I'll go on forever.
Where do you want me to start as far as I'll go back to the email.
Okay.
Because talking about the property, because we thought it was really interesting how she sent that long email and she was like, don't tell anyone about this property because I don't want a bunch of people coming. But she was so willing and trusting to send us that map with the coordinates and everything in it. And she didn't know anything about us, at least that's what we thought. But she knew a lot about us because I do a certain, what I do for my job. She, is very similar to what she did for a living. And she would talk to me about it in our conversation.
Tell them what her job was, though.
Which one? Her
her fake job as a psychologist.
She's a psychologist, and she studied marital counseling and exorcism. That's what her main specialties were. Yeah, demonic possession. There it is. Mm-hmm. And
this is who brought us out there to go find a portal.
Yes. And so, I think at the time we didn't really think anything of it because, we were busy trying to figure out about the portal. But I know you had your instincts the moment that you met her. And I think it was like the second day when I pieced a bunch of the stuff together based upon the evidence that she presented as far as who she was. And I always thought it was interesting that when, her family members would call, she'd have their full names listed in the phone. She was always talking on the phone. She was always, texting, and she had what they would call, remote viewers available to her, which are psychics. I didn't know what remote viewers were. When she would tell me, I'm like, I don't know what that means. And then I think, Radix, you told me later on, remote viewers is what is equivalent to a psychic, or that's the verbiage that people that work for the government would use. And the first day that we get out to the portal, I mean, there was a lot of what we felt like was keeping us from getting to do the mission. We were being held back a lot. I think you can agree with that. A lot of slow-moving energy. I spent the day pretty much setting up the campsite the first day. Her tent, all her stuff, everything, which is fine. I didn't mind doing it, but it kept us from getting to the portal. I think we had an hour or so before sundown, right? I think that was about right, or maybe an hour and a half before it got dark.
Yeah, it's about what we had left, about an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm. And so we get out there, and the first thing that she really does, we get out of the vehicle. She takes us in this beautiful new SUV that she just bought, and we get to the spot where you can't walk any further. You have to go on foot and hike. So
wait a minute. The brand new SUV, she was smashing it you guys have no idea that the terrain there was just insane. Mm-hmm. Nobody would take anything back there because it is really, really hard to get back there. And she just drove through it like it was nothing because we now are pretty sure that was a government vehicle. It wasn't hers because she literally didn't care. And we were sticking, I had a spear, and because, martial arts, I brought my spear, my bow, and a couple of swords. And we weren't bringing those things because if we had to fight alien entities that were going to come out, because I don't know what was going to happen. I had no idea. I didn't know if we were going to be welcomed with open arms or if there was going to be some type of challenge that was going to happen. Because you got to understand, when the draconian came to me, it came to me in my karate school. So I wasn't really sure what to expect. I'm just very neutral to, I'll be prepared, but if nothing at all, then, I don't care. And so, I took my spear in her SUV. It was branded, and the spear like tore a little piece of something, and she didn't even care. Like, do you remember that? Like, she did not care. So we're pretty sure it wasn't even her vehicle, and she just got it the day before. And she said she just got a raise the day before when she brought us out there, which was all kind of very weird stuff. Like, you got a promotion, Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut in on you.
No, that's good, because sometimes I forget certain things. But yeah, we get there finally, and she looks to me, and she's licensed to carry, and she hands me a weapon, and she's like, "You need to protect yourself." And I'm thinking,
it's like a 9mm or something, or
yeah, with a laser on it.
Fully
and
loaded.
She's like, "You can't." Yeah, totally loaded. I have never shot a gun in my life, and I don't have a license or anything like that. And she hands it to me, and if I were to choose a weapon, it wouldn't be that. It would be like a staff or something. I don't know. But it was just very peculiar, and then she ended up taking it back anyway. So it was kind of like, and you'll see as to why that's important to the story, because towards the end, like, something could have happened to Rad-X on the third day. And
which was 72 hours, was what I said when we got there. I said,
mm-hmm.
we have to stay here for 72 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
And the first day we get to the cave, and you were up there, I think. I think you were climbing around a little bit and looking to see if you could get inside of the cave.
Yeah, the cave, guys, is blocked in by a cave-in in the very front. It's blocked and you cannot get in. But to get to the cave, you have to go through this really windy area, and it's like a dome back there. Like, you cannot see anywhere in there. Now, across from that is a old abandoned military base called the Green River, and there's a crystal geyser down there. So people go there, but they can't go over to the other property, and it's damn near almost impossible because the terrain is really bad. And we were over there where the cave was and the cave-in was, but before you go to the cave, before you get to this little path to get back to the cave, you have to go around this massive rock that is out of place. But none of us really thought anything about it. In fact, the first thing I did was walk up to my hand. I was like, "Wow, look at this rock!" But then I just walked past it. Like we all just walked past it. You
acknowledged it. Mm-hmm. You acknowledged it, but it was like subconsciously, maybe, that you knew something was special about it, but you just were like, "Okay, got to find the cave." And it was interesting too because of how the rocks had fallen in that area. It looked like she said that it was earthquakes, but how these rocks were positioned or how they were cut, they almost looked perfectly cut or like carved out, or I don't know. It looked like demolition of some kind to me. When I look back at it, it wasn't like a natural occurrence.
But the portal stone, the one that was in front of the pathway, was completely out of place. There were no other big stones like around it. You just kind of go around it, you get right to the cave. It was out of place, and you just don't know. It's just hard to explain, the way it looks there. Yeah,
this if you go to Rad-X's channel, you can see pictures of the portal stone and how like perfectly square. It's almost perfectly square, or maybe a little more rectangulish. And how it's perfectly put into the ground and sticking straight up. About an
8-foot being could walk through it. Mm-hmm. That's about it's because I think it's about 10 foot high. You think?
Yeah, I was thinking that about 10 foot high, and that was like our first day, and I think we were being rushed to get out of there.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure the first day too. And so we made it back to camp, and then
you two ladies, I don't want to cut you off, but you two ladies went to town And when y'all went to town, that's when I had the knock on my van. There was like something, I was in my van and it sounded like something, like somebody threw a rock, and there's no way, there is nobody around. You cannot get to this area. It's not that easy, guys. You can see it. It's insane, like how much land there is. It's flat and you can see for miles. So somebody cannot sneak up on you. There was like this, it sounded like a rock hit my van, and I was like, what the hell is that? Then all of a sudden I feel a big shove. So think of like some linebacker running at your car and hitting it. And that's what I felt in my van. Now, when I came out of my van with my swords, and I was just like, I mean, I'm prepared just in case I have to fight a being that's there that may want to challenge me to see if I'm worthy. I don't know what I'm up against, you know. Sure. I'm not afraid, but at the same time, I'm willing to do what I'm supposed to be doing here. And I come out and there's nothing around. There's no footprints. There's nothing. And I told the ladies when they came back that, and I know 1010 believes what I tell her. She kind of takes it as, okay, well, why would he lie? But the same thing happened to them the very next night in their vehicles. And they were like, that happened to us. But anyhow, go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get that in before we forget that part.
Yeah, that's okay. You had to go back to that too. When it happened to me, when it happened to you, and it also happened to the gatekeeper. I think around the same time, but like, it was a little frightening, but for you and I being out there, we weren't afraid at all. I mean, but the gatekeeper kept saying that she was worried nervous. Or concerned. Yeah, she was nervous about what was going to happen out there.
Oh, well, yeah, the thing is the gatekeeper was telling us this whole time that she goes out there all the time by herself, and she camps out overnight. And we found out that was a lie right from the very beginning, that she was lying about that. That's just, there's no way possible, especially because of the things that she was doing and stuff. But talk to them and explain to them when the first time that you felt like my life might have been in danger because of some of the stuff that she was saying to you when you guys would leave alone and leave me out there on a property by myself.
Yeah, I think it was like the second day. She would talk to her son pretty much every day, and I think I said, I think her son is her boss and not really like her actual son.
Yeah, a guy in the Air Force.
Similar like to her daughter also, who was very similar to me in my situation. Again, trying to befriend or have commonalities or build a foundation of trust, because you're like, oh, you're like me, or this is like me, things like that. But yeah, I think it was the second day, and we came back, and she asked me if Rad-X had issues with like depression, and if I thought he was suicidal. I mean, in essence, that's what she was asking me. And then at a different time asked me flat out, and I said no. He seems perfectly fine to me. He wouldn't. I said there's a difference because, and he'll tell you directly, like he's okay with meeting oblivion, but he's not going to take his own life because he knows that he has a purpose here, to bring news to people, to help them understand, the time hack in 1972. And, she just kind of looked at me and was like, you could tell it wasn't the answer that she wanted to hear. And another thing I want to mention, too, the fact that the area that we went to in the portal, it was government property. But I kind of wondered if the whole area was kind of off limits, and the only reason why I mentioned that is because nobody drove back there. And she would talk about how everybody would always drive back here, and they would trespass on the land. But the whole time we were there were no other vehicles, not ever.
Until the last day when she said that there are hunters out around that are not, it's not hunting season, there's hunters out and they have rifles, and she says, and by the way, Rat, you can go back to the portal by yourself, and I'm going to keep 1010 in the car with me. And I'm just like, that's kind of weird.
It is. So at that moment,
and a couple of trucks started coming out there, and they were circling around out in the area. And this is like, these guys they're like military. And I think that they were waiting to see were Draconians going to come out of this portal? Was I going to go into this portal? Were they going to have to snuff me? I don't know. But I can tell you the whole feel and the whole mood. Once me and 1010 found the portal, once we found and we confirmed that there is a portal here, because it's 1,000,000,001 chances that the Alcor star alignment would have been on that portal, on that stone at the very moment when I said, 1010, you're the navigator, you have to find a way in. And then she found the Alcor star immediately on there. Then the gatekeeper's eyes bugged out of her head. And I was like, confirm it with your phone too. And I told the gatekeeper to do it. And she pulled up her phone and she goes, oh my God. She says, it's on there. She's like, the Alcor. She's like, there's no way that this can, and like I said, it goes all the way back to January of 2020 when I was talking about Alcor in 1972 and the significance of it. And all of this stuff led up to this very moment in time that's just not possible. Because the constellation constantly moves. And for me to say right now at this very moment and on my way out there documenting some of this trip and saying that we have to be there at a specific time, it's just not possible, guys. Just like looking at 1972 and 2020 and being able to predict all those things as well as the freaking Super Bowl. It's just not possible. So yeah, and she was telling 1010, talking about my suicide. She was telling 1010 about being an Amazon, and because 1010 is not a small woman, she's a very big, strong woman. She's not, and she's not a big, heavy set woman. 1010 she does look like she could be like a Wonder Woman type, an Amazon type woman. She's a big woman, and she was telling her that she kept calling her the Amazon, which I can kind of understand that. But then she was telling you about, Amazon kill men and stuff, and telling her to take it was just weird. Like the whole thing was just, and she kept talking about like my death and.
Yeah, that was an awkward conversation that she had with me about that, because she did say that, kind of to touch back on, you're like an Amazon woman, and Amazon women, they normally kill the men that are around them or whatever. And we go back to that conversation because if you remember us telling you, Aaron, she handed me her firearm. So in that moment, I think later on, at one point, Red X was like, listen, you got to get out of here. I got to get out of here because if I don't, something's going to happen to me. He was like, I think you'll be okay, but you need to get out of here because I'm not sure what's going to happen.
We needed to separate, and they were trying to separate us. Like she was trying to separate us. After we found the portal, she was ready to cut bait and go because the military or whoever, whatever branch of government she works for, it was confirmed that there's a portal. Guys, there is a military base across from there. They talk about Utah as one of the, I think it's called like one of the four corners or something like, I don't know anything about all about that stuff. But I mean, they knew, and the whole thing, like the whole thing with the cows, like there's like cows that were been brought back there, which we pretty sure were brought back there as bait to try to get the aliens to come out of this portal. It's that real. It's not, look, we're not talking about stuff that we cannot confirm. We're talking about stuff that we have pictures and we have evidence of. We're talking about stuff that you guys go over there now. I bet you anything that stone is probably got some type of gate wrapped around it right now. And I bet you the military is all up in there because nobody is going to, the whole time we were out there, the gatekeeper constantly kept going back to her car, kept getting on the phone, talking to remote viewers, coming back to us. That's government stuff. You don't just do that. It just doesn't even make any sense. She was telling us that where the portal, where this cave was in the tail of the dragon. He's like, right? So, and what was the alien that came to me? It was a Draconian, a dragon people. And it's just really, really like, it's so real. It's not even funny. And this thing has caused problems for my social life, my personal life, and a lot of other things, because it's more important than everything else that I was doing, which was building a very good, solid foundation in a martial arts system with my school. and all that, and all the things I had going on. And it's put a monkey wrench in Tintin's life too. And it's just, the whole thing was, look, the gatekeeper told us that her son was in the Air Force. Okay, her husband had just passed away, left her all this land, and that the family hated her because she should not have got this land, and that that the sister of the husband, the sister of her sister-in-law worked for FEMA. She said she worked for FEMA, so she wanted us to be careful with some of the things that we text back and forth with her because she's afraid that her sister-in-law, come on, there's too much government here. And her job is that she also bills the government. That's what she says. She didn't say actually who she worked for the government, but she bills the government because she is a psychologist for marital issues and demonic possessions. I mean, guys, if you can't put the 2 and 2 together on that, I don't know what to tell you. You're missing all the big picture that's going on. And yes, it's put me in jeopardy, and it's definitely put Tintin in jeopardy. But we just keep pushing forward because I do know and I feel that there is something there that's protecting me. And like I said in the beginning, some people are going to think of me as the enemy, and that's fine. But I do feel like the Draconians are in some way protecting me. It's bizarre. It's strange. I've almost felt like, and then afterwards, after I reflected on my whole life, it's felt like that's happened throughout my entire life. And it just wasn't up until the year 2017 that everything was revealed to me. And without that happening, we never would have got to that point. None of this stuff would have happened.
Let me just kind of recap here for our audience and to try to highlight this a little bit. So first, this gatekeeper tries to give you Tintin a gun, a loaded gun, right?
Yes, that's correct.
She wants you armed. She didn't necessarily offer it to Rat X, did she?
She told me no. She never offered me a gun. She told me to pick up her gun on the last day that we're there to get her one of her guns out of her tent. She's like, hey, can you get that gun for me out of the tent? And when I went to go pick it up, I picked it up with like the tips of my fingers. So I didn't leave any fingerprints on it, you know? So it definitely felt like I was being set up.
Yeah.
You know, because it's just like, who would do that?
So she tries to get you packing 1010 with a loaded gun, and then she starts talking about Radix's death and how Amazon women kill the men, and wow, it just sounds like a psychological MK Ultra mind trip from HE double toothpicks.
MK Ultra was defunded in the year 1972. That was the year that MK Ultra is defunded. Anybody can look it up. 1973, MK Ultra is when they started destroying all their records. So every conspiracy that you can think about just about goes back to that year because it's a time hack.
Yeah, well, they say they stopped it. I say they just changed the name. Maybe they changed it to the Gatekeeper. Who knows?
I agree. Just like they say we never went to the moon. Just like a lot of people don't believe we went to the moon. But their claim is that it was the last time they went to the moon was in 1972. So I don't try to go down the rabbit hole of, well, they could be doing this, they could be doing that. Of course they did. Of course they didn't stop MK Ultra. We know that they just rebranded it. They sent it someplace else. There is no way that any government is going to put that much research into something and that much money and just say, hey, we got caught, so we're going to stop doing it. This is not how the government works. But the fact is, in the year 1972, it says that was when they were defunded. So we have to use that as a point of reference. Yeah. And that's where all that stuff comes from. And with the 1972, it was either a beginning or an ending for something that was all points of references.
Public information. Now, I just want to say that for me, I do believe that we did go to the moon, and that also that they did shoot some footage in case the cameras that they were sending on the moon with the astronauts didn't work, or if they didn't get any good shots. They wanted to make sure they had some good shots. So they went ahead and they made all of these very nice, photographs, because it was done in the studio, And they ended up using a lot of them because they were a lot better than the junk that the astronauts are not photographers. So what Nixon decided was, we can't go there and not have images. If we send them there and all of a sudden there's a malfunction and the cameras don't work, we need to have a backup. So that's why they did it. So that's why there's footage of different shadows, and because some of it was actually filmed in studio, but everything that landed on the moon is still there. The flag is still there, but the flag is now white because it's been bleached from the sun, because there's no atmosphere, and it's been bleached completely white.
Richard Nixon, a lot of people don't know this, but he is so important to the time hack and what happened in 1972. People need to understand, from the entire time of the moon landings, from the very first moon landing all the way up to Apollo 17, the very last moon landing, he was the only president in history that was the head of the United States when the moon landings are going on. It's a very good possibility, because they were saying in the Disclosure Project that, the first time that they went out to the moon, that on their way there, I guess some astronauts were saying that they saw, beings there. Oh, okay, yeah. Tell us about it.
That's what they saw. Now, William Tompkins is the guy who designed the rockets, how to build the rockets, even the building to build the rockets in. He designed the scientific room where they were studying all the information coming in on the panels. He designed that. And he also designed an underground observation room, much smaller, where they got all the footage before it went public. And this is what they saw on the edge of the crater, watching them land on the moon. And so ham radio operators for years, they recorded, because it was ungarbled. They just recorded those missing 2 minutes that everyone wondered what happened after they landed on the moon. There was no transmission for 2 minutes. They were like, "Oh my God, sir, they're huge. They're on the crater. They're watching us. We know. Turn the camera off. Turn the camera. Stop talking about it." And that's what they saw. He did a sketch of what he saw. He saw what they saw. And I did a little rendering of it, what it might have looked like. So yeah,
it's crazy.
Very interesting.
Nixon is huge. A lot of people don't understand what happened in 1972, being in fact that was the last time they went to the moon. While Nixon was in office during that, in the year 1972, they stopped mass producing nuclear weapons. That was under the order of Richard Nixon. They stopped making. They did a ban treaty on biological chemical weapons. That was under Richard Nixon. Oh, they also got rid of the Corona spy satellite. Speaking of biological chemical weapons, they got rid of the Corona spy satellite in the year 1972. There was a historic landslide with Nixon in 1972. It was the only time in history that there was one state that went to one Democrat and one to an independent, and the rest of the country went to Richard Nixon. He got it all. Nixon he put the Clean Water Act in place, like the Marine Protection Mammal Act in place. Tons of stuff happened under this man. So if you're telling, most people have been talking about a lot of disclosure stuff where they're talking about aliens coming here and stuff, and they're saying that, there are a lot of aliens that have invested interest in this planet being cleaned up. Well, in 1972, the last time they went to the moon, all of a sudden the planet starts getting cleaned up. You start paying attention to all these things going on. Stop making nuclear weapons. When they were having the most, and I think I might have heard on your show, maybe on somebody else's show, when they had the most UFO crashes was during the time before 1972, when there was tons of nuclear tests going on. When there was so much nuclear bombs going off, when they were testing so much, that's when UFOs started crashing. They were having a lot of crashes during that time. Then all of a sudden, 1972, hey, let's stop mass producing nuclear weapons, and all of a sudden, boom, all this stuff changes, as well as the currency becoming a fiat currency. And you and I was talking about that earlier. But people need to understand is the year before 1972, in 1971, Richard Nixon changed the dollar to a fiat currency. So in 1971, you could take your dollars. You could take, if you had $5,000, $50,000, you can go to the bank and say, hey, I want $50,000 in gold. And the bank had to produce gold. They had to give you the gold for the money that you were turning in. It's where they had silver certificates. But then towards the end of 1971, he stopped that. But the dollars did not start becoming fiat currency until the year 1972. And I'm going to put this out here right now. And the first person that can get me a dollar, $1, that has the year 1972, that it was actually made in 1972, I don't know how much they're worth because I cannot find them anywhere. It has to be made in 1972. I will give you $48 for that $1, unless they're worth more than I'm making out better. But I don't even believe they exist. And so this is something I'm putting out there for people. Find a dollar that actually was stamped and dated and created in the year 1972. It's almost as if they don't even exist. It's like the currency didn't even exist in that year. You know, and just go ahead.
They do destroy paper money after a certain amount of years. They destroy it.
Yeah, they do. But I can find, I said this to my mother, and I told her the same thing. You know what my mom does? She goes in her photo album. I got video of it. And she pulls up her photo album. She goes to, the old photo albums back in the day. And she goes to old money that she has that was created before the year 1972. Old silver certificates. Those are out there. So even though they destroy money, we can find money long before 1972. So where are the 1972 dollars? It's almost like they don't freaking exist. Somebody find me one. I will pay you $48 for that dollar, unless it's worth more than, I don't want to rip anybody off. But I have been looking everywhere, and I cannot find any paper money, not coins, because they can print coins right now in the print, and they can make it say it was made in 1970. No, I want to see paper money. Just like I can find silver certificates that are $2 bills or $100 bills or $5 bills that were created pre-1972 that say silver certificate on them.
Well, there you go, people. You can make a fortune if you find enough $1 bills that say 1972, and that doesn't mean crossing it out with a Sharpie and writing it in yourself. Has to be real.
Actually has to be printed in the year 1972. Now, here's another thing. For those of you who go out there and you look for them, you can't find them, ask yourself why you can't find them. Ask yourself, what the hell is going on? How can I find dollars from 1971, 1973, but where are the 1972 dollars?
I don't know.
It's as if they simply don't exist.
I got a question. Did this happen in 1972? I know that it happened under the Nixon administration, where they made it legal to profit from healthcare. Prior to Nixon making this passing this new law, you could not legally profit from healthcare, and we see where that's gone.
I have no idea. I don't know about that, but I will look into it. I can tell you, when you talk about healthcare, we all know about Anthony Fauci, right? He's like the hot button doctor. Like, everybody forgot who Dr. Oz is. They're like, Oz who? Now all they're talking about is Anthony Fauci, because he is a month ago, they dubbed him the highest paid employee in the government. Okay, right. A lot of people don't trust it. They don't trust all the stuff that's going on. Right. Anthony Fauci went into infectious diseases in the year 1972. That's when his career started, was in the year 1972. The same year that the name Corona for the Corona spy satellite was canceled. Mm-hmm. And then in 2020, all of a sudden we hear about Anthony Fauci and we start hearing about a Corona. I mean, it's just, there's connections that are insane.
All of a sudden we hear about him. He's been there since 72, and then in 2020, all of a sudden he's like all over the place. Yeah, that is
America's doctor. America's doctor. Look, and they've been talking about, the African American community doesn't trust. I see it on the news all the time. They keep talking about the African American community doesn't trust the vaccinations and all this and stuff, right? And they always say they have to refer back to the Tuskegee experiment, right? Well, that ended in the year 1972 when Anthony Fauci went into infectious diseases. It was also the same year in 1972 when they started finally labeling and doing review of over-the-counter drugs. In other words, you can go and get over-the-counter drugs and you really didn't know what you were getting in them. So there were drugs, obviously, that they had to pass a thing in 1972 that now they're going to have to start labeling the drugs. So it's just, there's so much stuff that happened in that year. It doesn't matter what conspiracy you want to go with. You can find that it's connected to 1972. Like I said, the whole thing with 9/11, all that stuff is all connected to the same year.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I also went to the trouble of the pleasure of looking up the 3 top songs of 1972. The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face by Roberta Flack. Alone Again, Naturally by Gilbert O'Sullivan. I remember that song. And American Pie by Don McLean. Now, American Pie is about how America has virtually changed and doesn't even resemble what it used to be, right?
Yeah, that's a good find. That's a good find. When you talk about music in 1972 and how it connects to the things that were happening in 1972. The song Rocket Man. That's like everybody's, like, most people, if they were going to say, hey, I'm going to go, I'm going to get a trip to go to the moon, right? Like, I'm going to get to go on a shuttle that they made now where they can just start taking people to the moon. I bet you on the soundtrack, going to the moon, Rocket Man would be one of the first songs on that freaking shuttle. It came out in the year 1972. Rocket Man, the song Starman by David Bowie, came out in 1972, which is also when they created when they launched Pioneer 10. The Pioneer 10 satellite literally had a message on it that they were sending out into space, showing any extraterrestrial life forms, giving them a welcome message and showing them the map of Earth and our star map. That was what was sent out in 1972, the same year that David Bowie comes out with the song Starman. Now, do we believe that these artists were actually, hey, the government went to them and said, hey, this is the last time we're going to go to the moon, so we want you to come out with, this song, Rocket Man, and hey, we're going to send this satellite out to meet alien life forms, so we want David Bowie to make this, song about, meeting a man out in the sky, a starman. It's just, there's no way. And like the whole thing with Dark Side of the Moon and Pink Floyd, if anybody out there is a Pink Floyd fan, all of that stuff was done in the year 1972. Dark Side of the Moon, Lunatic, the song Money. Well, 1972 is when the money changed. The song Money comes out, the song Breathe, Us and Them, all this stuff in the year 1972. So even the music was connected to what was going on in that year. And it's just not possible, guys, for that many artists to all know what's going to happen in that year and to write music for that year, specifically as those things are going on. Like, it's just not possible. Because of the odds are against it, you have to look and say, hey, there's something going on. And it's not 1, 2, 3, 5, 20 things. We're talking about, I have a list of 80 things that happened in 1972 that should not have naturally occurred all together in one year.
I have one comment to make about your the reptilian, and you're surmising it's maybe from space, but I do know from what I've been studying, there's a very good possibility that there are terrestrial reptilians just living underground that are every bit as wonderful and nice as the draconians. I'm speaking in jest, of course, but they might be homegrown.
Okay, so here's what I want to say, and this is where I'm going to become the enemy to everybody listening. And what you guys got to understand is the only way that you can ever move forward in anything that you want to do where you have an opposition, you need to understand your enemy. So you're probably going to view me as an enemy here, and that's fine, because even my birth and everything with me being here, I have constantly been on my own. Being a biracial kid growing up down south in Florida, I had to fight the white kids and I had to fight the black kids. It was constant all the time. There were black kids that hated me and there were white kids that hated me. Every once in a while, somebody would try to reach out to me and try to be a friend, but they got peer pressure from both sides. So I literally have been pretty much alone in this journey my entire life, which has given me a neutral position to understanding both sides, right? And we're going to talk about the reptilians here, and you're going to understand. I need people to understand my psyche and where I come from. I believe that, and people are going to probably hate this too, I believe you have the right to be a racist. That's your right. If you don't like me because I'm half black, you have the right to say, hey, I don't like you because you're half black. If you don't like me because I'm half white, you have the right to say, I don't like you because you're half white. And trust me, I get it from both sides. I've had black women say, you're not black enough. I've had black people tell me, you're not black enough. And then I had white people tell me, you're too freaking black. So being in the middle, I mean, nowadays we see there's biracial people everywhere. But growing up in the 70s and in the 80s and in the 90s down south, and I even dealt with busing and everything down there, I literally grew up, in a neutral position where I don't hate both sides. I had to learn how to understand them. I had to learn how to understand why they were the way they were, why I was alone on this journey with being raised by a mother who literally hated me. A single mom who was a lesbian who hated men. I mean, imagine that. And every day she came home and she beat me. She hated me. It was, I literally grew up in a life of war. Like, my life was war. I mean, that's just what it was. It was always constantly warring at school and stuff. And there's a lot to it, guys, and I don't really want to talk. And I'm not giving you guys a hard luck story, because as I became a teenager, I became a very, very popular person because I got really heavy into skateboarding, because that's a very soul thing where you're doing it alone. And through that, and then I went on to become pro, and I skated for 4 companies and did a lot of stuff with that. And then I got into martial arts, and then I got into acting, and I did bodybuilding. And so I've done a lot of things, and I've had a lot of things like flourish for me, a lot of really cool things that happened for me. Went to Burt Reynolds School for two years. But anyhow, I'm not going to give you the whole gist of my life, because it's really not that important. But what I need you to understand is my position, where I'm talking from my point of view when we talk about the reptilians. Yes, there are reptilians here. I'm sorry, a lot of people are going to hate this. They're not going to want to hear this. But you had the crustacean era, and then after that, you had the reptilian. You had the Jurassic era. Yeah. Well, you look at raptors, and if you change that structure, and you change the raptor structure of a angle of a 90-degree angle creature that's running forward with its head pointing forward, and imagine that creature standing upright. Mm-hmm. Now, what do we have? We have a humanoid-looking reptilian being. Okay, so if you change it, just slightly change it, then you have it looking slightly different. So it's very possible that the reptilians were here long before the humans were. They were here long before they were, and then when the humans came, then there was an ice age, and the reptilians had to go underground, which probably was weather warfare, by the way. And then they went underground, and when they resurfaced, all of a sudden now you have the warm-blooded mammal age. You have the woolly mammoths. You have the big cats. The saber tooth, and then now you have these humans that are here. So yes, it's possible. I do believe that there are reptilians here. I don't believe that the Draconians are from here. I'm pretty sure that they come from somewhere else. And yes, there are Draconians here now. I just recently found the whole thing on the Jersey Devil just about a week and a half ago, and it blew my mind, because I've been looking for the same footprints of what happened in my school, and come to find out that there's a thing called the Jersey Devil, which they had the same footprints on the roof. And they said, and they talked about the story of the Jersey Devil has, been sightings of that for, over 100 years or something. And they say that it has a reptilian tail, and it has these big, gigantic bat-like wings. Okay, so and I see the footprints, I'm like, that's Draconian. Just recently, I was just even looking into more of the gargoyles, right? Like, where does this idea of gargoyles being put up on top of buildings to help ward off people from coming to your building, right? But, you look at, I think that the problem is everybody wants there to be polarization, just like we do in the politics. Everybody wants to say all the reptilians are bad. I don't believe that. I'm sorry. If the Draconian that came to me was a bad entity, it wanted to hurt me, it would have hurt me in my sleep. It would not have unlocked my brain. It would not have put this message out where I see the 1972, and I'm trying to unlock other humans' brains and try to share with them, look, this is what's going on. Something has happened that's blocking humans' minds. Look at the pyramid. Let's just go to the pyramid. It's on the freaking dollar. Why is the pyramids on the dollar? Everybody has all these different, these different things that they say. Well, here's the thing. We know that nobody really knows exactly how the pyramid was built, right? So if it's a mystery and it's a block in your mind, it's on your dollar. In God we trust, and pyramids on there. There's things that are put there in our faces to show you, as a human, you will never know how this has happened, because your mind is being blocked. There is a frequency that's blocking your mind. I don't care what people think. Look at HAARP. HAARP is about frequency. I've been doing a lot of study on frequencies and how they're using it to change people's minds and alter people's minds. And HAARP is one of those things. You're telling me that humans can do this, but advanced alien species aren't way ahead of the game? They can really manipulate and make everyone not see things that are there, or manipulate and change things in people's minds, or put a block in your mind. In other words, if I say, hey, look at all this stuff that happened in 1972, and you run the other way because you want to find other excuses or X, Y, and Z, instead of saying, you know what, this is kind of weird. Let me investigate in that. What is going on here? I need to take a look at this. People don't tell me I need to take a look at that. I need to see what the hell is going on. What are you talking about? Why is all this stuff happening? They just won't do it. And that tells me that there's something wrong. There's something wrong with the human race. Something has happened that blocks their minds for them not to see clear evidence. Far too many things. In a court of law, this is a smoking gun. It's fingerprints all over the crime scene. Mm-hmm. Yet people won't look at it.
Well, they haven't heard about it yet, and that's why I'm having you on here. I think it's very interesting thing. You have this 1972 2020 connection. I think is very, very interesting. I lived through 1972, and the 70s were very weird. I mean, I did not like the 70s. I couldn't wait till they were done. But yeah, a lot of things happened in the early 70s, and then it started to not happen. It seemed like, yeah.
Weird time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a very strange, bell bottoms,
yeah. So before I go through the list of 1972, do you want to go over some of the numerology stuff with you and explain to them birthdays and things like that, the stuff that you discovered with numerology?
Yeah, I can touch on a little bit of it. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, so after I discovered 1972, just kind of went like on a whirlwind of numbers, I guess, and how there was one particular number, 172, that stuck out. And I know that started with Rad-X when you went to Alcor. And also, it actually started with 172 spontaneous abortions that happened in 1972. So that prompted the correlation between Alcor, which there was 172 cryogenically frozen people. And if you need more information, it is public knowledge. You can go to their website. The axis rotation, it rotates 1 degree every 72 years. So that was something interesting. That's the census records for the account of Americans is 1 every 72 years. So Chapter 172 Code of the Primary of Elections, you can look that up also. The Muslim culture, it's 1 man for 72 virgins, and also there was one language prior to the Tower of Babylon, or the Tower of Babel, I should say, which 72 languages came after that fall. And you can find all this information using Wiki or going into Google. 6 foot is 72 inches, and when a person dies, you bury them 72 inches under 6 foot of dirt. So there's just a few. You could probably go on and on. And there was something that I learned about yesterday that was passed, and a lot of people are probably familiar with this already, but the Violence Against Women's Act, it was 244 to 172 in votes. So 172 Republicans, it doesn't really matter. It's the number that's important here, voted against the Violence Against Women's Act. So the significance of this number, if you take time and you look it up, you can see that there's something, it's like a fingerprint, of a time hack, similar to the Mandela effect. And I know I was talking to you early about this, Aaron. If you go back, if somebody time hacks or time travels, it changes the course of history. And how I look at it is something happened in 1972, and why constantly am I seeing 172 or 72? It's like a fingerprint. It's like a mark, similar to people remember the Bernstein Bears when it's the Bernstein Bears, or vice versa. For me, it was Chick-fil-A. I always thought it had a K, but apparently it doesn't. It ends with, it's C-H-I-C, and that's a Southern food chain. I'm not sure if people are familiar with it or not. But it's just small things that played a significant role in someone's life. And when you look back on it, you say, well, this is how I remember it. And a lot of people remember certain things, and that's not how it's presented.
That's all right. I want to cut in 1 second on the Mandela effect.
Sure.
Yeah, so there's two ways to explain the Mandela effect. One is we're in a simulation, and that there's something wrong in the simulation. That's the reason why we had the Mandela effect. The things are different because the program's written differently. The other is that a timeline has been messed with. Okay, so most people agree, because they've seen in plenty of movies, that when somebody goes in time and they screw with time and you change one thing, it ends up having a ripple effect in time. So if 1972 was a time hack, that an alien species crammed a whole bunch of stuff in 1 year that should not happen, in 1 year, but, they put it all in 1 year, well, it ends up having a ripple effect and affecting other things. And this stuff is all like new, right? It's not, but pre-1972. It's after 1972. The whole thing with the monocle and the Monopoly, there's no way. I'm sorry. There was a monocle on that dude. I know people had that tattooed on them. Yeah. We could stop right there. We can begin and end right at the monocle because we know it was there. So what happened? I don't go down the rabbit trail of the Mandela effect like a lot of people do. We know it happened, fine, whatever. You can look for millions of things. Maybe Tylenol is spelt differently or something. I don't even care anymore. I just want to know why. I don't care about the symptom. I want to know what the cause was. And the cause was either we're in a simulation and things are written wrong, or time has been manipulated. And I tell people, please look into all this stuff in 1972. It was a time hack. It's a freaking smoking gun. That will give you your answer of what happened and why the Mandela effect is. Otherwise, what other point in time do you think that they manipulated time? Maybe you'll see like one or two things. I'm talking about a major list of things that began or ended in that year. Not things that were ongoing, but began and ended. We're talking about points of reference.
I had heard about the Mandela effect that our own military and some other groups were going back in time and not necessarily changing things, but every time you do go back, certain things do change, and then they try to fix it, and then some advanced entities came and said, look, you have to stop trying to go back and fix things. Time is like elastic. If you just leave it alone, all the timelines will snap back together. And that's what's happening now. All the timelines are snapping back together. And when they do, there's some changes because all the collective differences all tumble down into the agreed upon thing, however that happens. But that's how it was explained to me. And it seemed to make a little bit of sense. But who really knows, right?
Yeah, I mean, that could be the case too. But either which way, no matter what people's theories are or whatever they want to believe, 1972 is a starting point to look at when time is manipulated. If we just look at that year, if people just get into it and investigate it and say, this is not possible, all these things could have happened in that 1 year. That something happened to where these things happened throughout the years, but somehow, for some reason, like you said, they wanted to fix it, and they crammed it all into 1 year. And because of that, it all went into 1972, and it screwed up a bunch of stuff. But it also, the 1972, ended up being connected to 2020. So guess what, guys? There's 2 time hacks right there. 1972 and 2020. They're connected. It's insane when you look at what the things that happen. Hey, Tintin, can you tell them why I call you Tintin? Talk about your numbers and your birth and all that stuff.
Sure. So my birthday is 10/10/1982. So that's why he calls me 1010. But also, if you take 1 plus 9, that's 10, and then 8 plus 2 is 10 also. So I'm 1010. Yeah. So
what's your birth sign?
Libra.
And that's the lady of the scale, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the lady of the scales in balance normally is 10. So balance on both sides would be 10/10.
Yeah, and if people want to know why I refer to myself as Rat X, is because 1972 was the year of the rat, and it's also Generation X, which is another thing. You never hear them talking about Generation X. It always goes right from baby boomers to millennials. It's like X is to X something out, to not talk about it. And 1972 is a X out year. It's like, it's not a conspiracy, guys. It's not. You can look up the evidence. It's right there in your face. It's not being hidden. It's in your face. However, there's a block in your mind that will stop you from understanding what you're looking at. So for those of you who can see it, congratulations, because your mind is starting to evolve in a different space. But you'll start to understand that most people, when you start telling them, hey man, look at all this stuff. How is this possible? Hey, can somebody please explain to me how this is possible? And those people will tell you, I don't know. And they'll change the subject. Their eyes will glaze over. They'll want to go somewhere else, because it's like seeing something that's very, very ugly. Okay. Like, and I'm not picking at anybody, but if you ever seen somebody who walks by you and they're very hard to look at, you don't look at them. Mm-hmm. You just know they're there, and you're trying not to be rude, but right. You don't look at them because you don't want to stare. Well, this is the same thing. That's what 1972 is.
Wow. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Since it was the year of the rat, I had a revelation, possibly. Now, that footprint I saw on your video looks a little bit like a big rat footprint, and I'm thinking, Master Splinter.
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
Hey, and Splinter, what? He had the Ninja Turtles, right? Those are reptilians.
Yeah, well, amphibians, right?
See, a lot of people they go to reptilian and automatically think evil, bad, and all that, because that was put in your mind from the very beginning in the Bible, about which obviously was an upright being that was, reptilian. Because why would in the Bible where it says, crawl on your belly for eternity, But anyhow, there are all different types of reptilian creatures that we know that are not. I mean, iguanas. I mean, who's afraid of an iguana? Who's afraid of a little lizard? There's a lot of reptilians that are not. And just like there are different types of humans, mm-hmm. right? There's fat humans, there's tall humans, there's black humans, there's there's white humans, red, yellow, whatever you guys want to call them. I don't like the colored on people because I just don't think it's correct, but it is what it is. Right. There's just like there's different types of humans. There's also different types of beings. I don't understand why humans seem to think that all the other creatures out there in the galaxy, they all are very monotone. Like they all look the same. They all act the same. It doesn't make any sense. You don't think that they don't get into types of sports or have different types of entertainments or different types of desires or needs. That's like the whole thing. Everybody talks about, aliens want to come here and have sex with people. Well, I want to have sex with aliens, maybe. I want to be James T. Kirk. I want to be the guy from freaking Guardians of the Galaxy. Man, if there's a hot alien out there right now, as long as I get to choose what the sex is going to be, as long as I get to choose, it's not going to hurt me and kill me in any kind of way, and I'm going to enjoy it, I'm all for it. So I don't know why people are so, they think that all aliens are either going to come here to kill us or they're going to come here to save us. How about find a neutral position? How about you just take a step back and observe and see what they want, what they want to do, and see if we can find common ground with them. Of course there are ones who hate you. They absolutely hate you as a human. And there are ones out there who absolutely adore you as a human. But there's also a group out there that doesn't care, but they are willing to, trade and try to get to know you. Does that make sense? Why do we separate ourselves from them?
I don't know. I think that the reptilians have gotten a bad rap, and I think maybe that they should, the reptilians should put someone forward and do, call it Raptilian, do a rap song, Raptilian.
The Raptilian.
Yeah.
I mean, if you got a bunch of reptilians that came out and there were cute looking Ninja Turtles or lizard looking people and stuff and things like that, then people will be like, oh, this is we can, these things aren't all that bad. But if they come out and they look very hardened, very like mean looking, people automatically going to go right to, oh, these are the bad guys and they're trying to hurt us. It's just like, come on, man. I mean, we're always talk about don't judge a book by its cover. Right? Nobody practices what they preach anymore.
Right.
We just
got a message from 1010. She says, I've got to head out, guys.
Oh, okay. All right, 1010.
Thanks, 1010. Thank you for your input. It was awesome stuff. Yeah, numerology is really, really interesting. You want to go down a rabbit hole, there's a numerology thing where, have you heard of a guy named Dr. Hinton?
No.
He's a psychologist. He came out in the early 2000s, I believe, claimed that he was seeing this guy. One of his patients was Jesse Presley, who, after a few years, confided in him that he was indeed formerly Elvis Presley.
Wow.
He gave him a DNA sample, a photograph, and a bunch of rings, and an 8-page handwritten letter. It all checked out, even the DNA. So there's a good mystery, huh?
I absolutely love Elvis Presley. In the art and Kempo, that I have one of my 4th degrees in that in Taekwondo.
Awesome.
He was 6th degree in Kempo karate, and he would do martial art moves up on stage. A lot of people don't know that. And Elvis Presley was a major fan of the martial arts, and he started martial arts. He started judo, back in the military.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. And I think it was in 71 or 72 in Vegas, he was approached by 5 men doing karate moves, or 4 men doing karate moves. 3 of his bodyguards came out and took care of one each, and there was one guy left, and Elvis did some kind of karate move on him and kicked him off the stage. There's audio of it. You can hear it, what Elvis said. It's very funny, but they don't have the video of it. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, very cool. All right, I'm going to run down this list of 1972 stuff just to give your audience an idea of what's going on.
Okay.
All right, you guys ready? I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible. Okay. Bill Gates' first programming company, Trafto Data, was created and founded in the year 1972. That later became Microsoft. The first video games ever, Pong, Atari Magnavox was created in 1972. SRI's Artificial Intelligence Center's first mobile intelligent robot retired in 1972. So you got AI there. The first full picture of Earth was taken, called the Blue Marble, and that was in the year 1972. So the first time they got the map of the Earth, the full clear picture, was in that year, 1972. Apollo 17, the last man to walk on the moon, was Gene Cernan, and that was in the year 1972. By the way, that's another 172 because you got 2 men who walked on the moon. That's from Apollo 17, 172. So that's another one of those things that we're talking about, footprints. NASA's ex-director, Samuel Phillips. So the guy who was there when they first went to the moon, he left NASA and went over to be the director of the National Security Agency in the year 1972. So we had a director of NASA who left, who was there when they were doing the moon landings and went to the National Security Agency in 1970. It's just kind of bizarre. CERN exceeded its intensity by more than 1,000 times. It was unexplained. They had no idea. They were trying to get the Large Hadron Collider. They were trying to get the funding for that for the France and Switzerland, to get France and Switzerland to go through. And it would not happen if not 1972, when they had a intensity of 1,000 times spike that happened. And then the contract was signed in the year 1972. So yeah, you guys, it hits boson, all that. You can think CERN 1972. Stephen Hawking came out with his black hole theory of event horizon in 1972. Jacob Bekenstein's black hole entropy theory, meaning that black holes retain information, in the year 1972. The Advanced Research Project Agency, and I'm sure most people know what DARPA is. It became DARPA in the year 1972. Pioneer 10, we talked about that earlier. Pioneer 10 satellite probe was launched towards Jupiter in the year 1972. Historical, powerful solar storms. It was the fastest solar storms in history. 1972 were the fastest solar storms in history. You just were coming one after another. Boom, 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 boom. And because of that, there was 24 mines in the water that blew up during Vietnam in 1972 when this happened, and they thought something was happening to the mines underwater, and come to find out later on, it was because the solar flares were so intense, they were blowing up the mines in the water. That happened in 1972. The CIA's psychic program, Stargate, with Ingo Swann, began in 1972. You guys talk about remote viewers? Well, yeah, 1972 is when the government started the Project Stargate. The CIA's program started in 1972. CIA's Corona Reconnaissance Spy Satellite ended in the year 1972, and that was a big deal. In fact, they said that that satellite, if you look up the research on it, because of that satellite, it was literally responsible for helping end the Cold War and all of that stuff, because they were saying that they were able to get more information than anyone else because of the Corona Spy Satellite. Ended in the year 1972. The CIA ended the Operation Popeye, which was weather warfare. You guys know what chemtrails are? I'm sure you do. Look it up. Operation Popeye ended in the year 1972. In fact, there was massive amounts of people who were going to the Capitol, like the 6th, but not as bad, going to the Capitol saying, stop weather warfare in Vietnam. That was Operation Popeye. It ended in the year 1972. That's when I say people talk about conspiracies. There's, chemtrails. The CIA's funding for MK Ultra, which we talked about earlier, that ended in the year 1972. You guys know what that is, mind control. The funding ending pretty much tells you that this is the end of the program. When they pull funding, that means the program needs to stop. But the fact is, it happened in the year 1972. Richard Nixon was the first U.S. president ever to go to China. And when he was in China, imagine that. The first U.S. president to go to China was in the year 1972. And when he was there, you guys can look this up on YouTube. Type in Richard Nixon visits China and invites them to the New World Order. He literally said, inviting them to the New World Order, Richard Nixon. So when people say about the New World Order, yeah, we've been part of that for a long time. Richard Nixon's Watergate investigation went through, that started in 1972. The only election landslide, I talked about this earlier, history, was in 1972. Donald Trump's investigation for housing discrimination against people of color, that began in the year 1972. And I know people will start getting angry and say, oh, you're talking bad about Trump. Look, guys, I don't look at these people like the way you do. You look at them as they're humans. I don't. And I don't look at them as reptilians or anything that you can even understand. So I look at it completely different. But yeah, that happened in the year 1972. In fact, I put up a video earlier today showing Trump picking up some black soldier's hat that blew off his head and putting it back on his head. So when people try to, just because I talk about this stuff and I'm sharing information, I don't choose a political side. The USS Kitty Hawk had the only time there's a race riot on a ship, on a Navy ship, was in the year 1972, and that was on the USS Kitty Hawk. There was a race riot where our soldiers were fighting on the USS Kitty Hawk, a battleship out at sea. It was the Marines were fighting with the black Navy men that were on the ship, and they locked everything down. In 1972, the first Black National Political Convention was held. Guess what? I did more investigation into that. That pretty much was the beginning, the staple point for Black Lives Matter. Look that up. So, I mean, when I tell you like all your stuff, everything that has summed up your world right now, you can research it back to that year. The first woman to run for president, first black woman to run for president was Shirley Chisholm in 1972. By the way, Chisholm sounds like schism, and schism is what? It's about dividing things, but it's just bizarre. Yeah, that's her name. She ran for president in 1972. Amy Coney Barrett was born in the year 1972. If you guys don't know who she is, do some research on her. She was the one who went for Supreme Court justice last year. She was pushed through. And the whole trial, the whole time to try to stop her was, are you going to overturn Roe v. Wade? Well, guess what, guys? The last time it was illegal to have an abortion was in the year 1972, the very year that she was born, because Roe v. Wade went through in 1973. So the year that she was born was the last year was illegal for an abortion. And yes, she is about getting rid of the abortion. It is a very important thing to her. And I don't have a view on that. So you guys do take things however you want. The Equal Rights Amendment Act was passed in 1972, and I just found out this earlier today. Child support. Yeah, anybody right now listening to this, you're being hit with child support, 1972 ERA, look into it. I mean, and then there was also the Title IX amendment that went through in 1972. And if you guys don't like the fact that you're seeing these girls' sports in school, and you're seeing these boys who identify as females and they want to play in the girls' sports and they're pushing that, Title IX, 1972. You don't like it, look at 1972. The things you don't like, look at it. There it is. It's in that 1 year. Joe Biden was the youngest senator to be elected in the year 1972. He was elected when he was 29 years old. You're supposed to be 30. He was elected, and then a few days later, he turns 30 years old, and they say, okay, you're eligible now. Well, how do you get elected for something when you're not even eligible? Doesn't make any sense. It's a time hack, guys. These people are not who you think they are. Joe Biden's wife.
Corrupt from the get-go.
Joe Biden's wife and daughter die in a car accident right after he becomes the youngest senator in the year 1972. And in 2020, when he became the oldest president, that's how I predicted all this stuff. I predicted that they were going to go after Trump. They're going to say he was racist because of 1972. And I predicted that Joe Biden was going to become the oldest president because he was the youngest senator. And what did he do when he got inaugurated, when he won the election? Right before he won the election, he was at his wife and daughter's gravesite, as well as his son, Beau. But that's what they said first. And that happened in 1972. And I kept telling people, this is going to happen. And nobody listened to me. And there's timestamp and date of when I posted a video 2 months before election. I said, this is how it's going to go down. The Rothschilds' surreal ball, also known as the Illuminati ball, happened in the year 1972. Guys, look up 1972 Rothschilds' surreal ball. I think you'll really enjoy that. OPEC became a more activist organization in the year 1972, which led to the following year's oil crisis. If you don't know about what happened in the year 1973 with the oil crisis, look it up. It almost destroyed America. It almost literally destroyed America. And it was because in 1972, that's when OPEC really pushed forward for this big thing to actually, hey, we're gonna actually stick it to the Americans by taking the oil away. We're going to hike the price of oil up by like 200 times. And that started in the year 1972. The Clean Water Act was passed in the year 1972. So before that, you could just dump whatever crap into the water that you wanted. But in 1972, they say, hey, we want people to stop dumping toxins and pollutions in the water. So you got cleaner water in 1972. Although I can't tell anymore, because if you ever drink out of a hose nowadays, it's like the worst thing ever. I wouldn't give that to my animals. The Wildlife Protection Agency was passed in 1972. The Marine Mammal Protection Act was passed in 1972. That meant that you couldn't go harpoon manatees just for no freaking reason. You can't just go shoot a dolphin just because you want to. And the Dolphins, 1972, the Miami Dolphins are the only undefeated team in NFL history to ever win a Super Bowl. That happened in the year 1972. The Los Angeles Lakers became the longest winning streak. And that's also, by the way I was able to predict the Super Bowl was because of 1972 what happened. But the Los Angeles Lakers began the longest winning streak. The longest winning streak ended in the year 1972. It's still never been topped. So it ended in the year 1972, making 1972 the year that they were glorified for having the longest basketball NBA winning streak. Bob Douglas became the first African American to be elected into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Why is that even important? Because, I mean, black people in basketball. It took them all the way till 1972 to say, hey, we're going to give a black guy into the Hall of Fame. I mean, it's just like, this doesn't make any sense. You know, what was the first black baseball player? I just found this out the other day. The first, Jackie Robinson, the first black baseball player to ever play in Major League Baseball. He died in the year 1972. So even baseball was affected. Bernice Greer, she was the first umpire in professional baseball. Loretta Lynn. Think of this, guys. You guys know who Loretta Lynn is. She didn't even get her first country music award until the year 1972. She was the first woman to get it. All the women in country, right? Like all the women, and not until the year 1972 is when the first award was given to a woman in 1970. The Price is Right, which is what you were talking about earlier. The world's longest running game show. There is no game show running longer in the world than The Price is Right. That debuted in 1972. The first year the U.S. dollar was not backed by gold. We talked about that earlier. Was in 1972. Anybody can find me a 1972 dollar? I'll give you $48 for one. I don't even believe you'll be able to find it. But if you can, tell Aaron, and we'll get that $48 over to you, and we'll get that dollar because I need it. Go ahead.
What if a million people call in? Are you going to have $48 for all these million people?
Are they going to show us that they actually have that many freaking $1972? I don't think there's one that exists. I want to see one. Just show me one. I don't believe they exist. The Dow Jones crossed 1,000 points for the first time ever in history in the year 1972. For those of you who are into the market and stuff like that, think about that. The Dow Jones, how important is that to the market? And in the year 1972, the first time it ever went over 1,000 points was in that year, which is bizarre because money was no longer backed by gold. Does that even make any sense? Money was no longer backed by gold, but yet the Dow Jones goes over 1,000 points. That doesn't even add up. The Central Security Service, an agency of the Department of Defense, was established. Okay, so let me explain to you guys what that is. The Central Security Service was an agency that was created by that Phillips, who went to the NSA. He created that agency to watch over the NSA for whatever reasons. Well, because there's alien contact, because there was things that were going on. So that's the reason why that was put in place. Mm-hmm. That was policing them is what it was. It was investigating them. Atlas I, the largest non-nuclear EMP structure, was built in 1972. They built this massive wood structure to withstand a EMP so they could put things on it and stuff. That was built in 1972. The SALT Treaty was signed in 1972 to stop mass-produced nuclear weapons. The Ban for Biological and Toxin Weapons Convention was signed in 1972. The first recombinant. Here you go, guys. Let's talk about what was one of the things that people were so worried about getting the vaccination. Everybody's talking about, they may be changing our DNA. I don't know if you guys heard that conspiracy. 1972 was when the first recombinant DNA was created. That was cloning. If you look up recombinant DNA, it came out in the year 1972 is when it was discovered that they could actually clone cells, that they could take this. It was in 1972, recombinant DNA. And then Anthony Fauci, being America's doctor, he first went into infectious and allergy and diseases in 1972. The FDA established the over-counter drug review in 1972. The CDC and Public Health Services was under investigation and stopped the Tuskegee experiments that they were doing with syphilis. That was exposed and stopped in 1972. Alcor, a company that is the leading company for cryonics, was founded in 1972, and that is a pretty big deal. And you guys heard me talk a little bit about Alcor earlier. There was 161 U.S. residents were incarcerated in prison and in jails per 100,000 population. That was the last time in the history that it was that low. Now, you look at the population of people that are incarcerated versus 100,000 population, it's insane because they got laws for everything nowadays. If you whistle at a girl driving down the street, in some states in this country, that is called a sexual. That you will get a sexual crime for whistling, for catcalling at a woman, and that actually started over in Britain, and then they brought that law here. That's how insane the laws are, guy. If you whistle at a woman, that you can go to jail for that. That's sexual harassment. And so I mean, it's insane what goes on in this country. So first open gay couple in a TV movie was aired in the year 1972. We're not talking about kind of a closet like, a gay couple like we know that they're gay. Like we kind of thought like the Frasier guys might be, but we're not talking like we kind of think that they might be gay. But they actually were openly gay. Okay, in the year 1972, that's when it was aired on television. That's a shocker for people in 1972 who were not open-minded. Those people were just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe we're seeing this." The FBI, the founder of the FBI and director of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, dies in the year 1972. The first woman to be sworn into the FBI was in the year 1972. The House Majority Leader Hale Boggs. You know who the House Majority Leader is right now? Who is it?
Pelosi.
Pelosi. Okay, so imagine Pelosi, and probably people will be jumping up and down right now. Imagine Nancy Pelosi taking a plane ride and finding out that she disappeared in a plane over Alaska. All of a sudden, she's not to be found anymore. Like she's gone, like just erased. Okay. The House Majority Leader, Hale Boggs, just the same title that Nancy Pelosi has. He was flying in a plane over Alaska, and his plane came up missing. Now, here's the kicker, guys. Hale Boggs was a direct enemy of J. Edgar Hoover because he was saying that Hoover, the year before, needs to step down from the FBI. Remember, he had a death grip on the FBI because he was the founder and the director of the FBI since the beginning. So he spoke out against, J. Edgar Hoover. He became an enemy of him, and then all of a sudden he disappears. In other words, he dies, and then all of a sudden after that, then J. Edgar Hoover dies. So I mean, there's a lot of connections. Flight 571 crashed, and the survivors of that crash in the Alps, isn't that where it was? That movie Alive? Where was it at that they went down that plane?
In the mountains. That's all I know.
That's all I know too. But we all know the story of the people who crashed in an airplane and had to eat other humans. Everybody almost all knows that story, where they crashed in the mountains and they resorted to cannibalism. That happened in the year 1972. By the way, they were rescued 72 days later, and they found out that it wasn't that far to go get help. Like literally, they're sitting there eating each other. If they just would have pushed a little bit and got down the mountain more, they would have been found and they would have been fine. But that's what happens when you just don't know what to do. People were scared, so that's what they had to resort to. Cannibalism, 1972. That's one of the most iconic cannibalism stories. Where people, where they had no choice. Like they really felt like that's all they had. It was either eat snow and eat bark or eat each other, the people that were dead. The A300 Airbus, the world's first twin-engine commercial aircraft. The world's first twin-engine commercial aircraft was created in the year 1972. It's also the same year that it was the last time you could board an airplane without your baggage being checked. And your ID, by the way. Let me mind you, you could literally just go to the airport in 1972, go in there, slap down $50 and say, I want to catch a plane. And you could have your bags, and they were not even going in your bags. You could have whatever in it you wanted in there. And the same year, now let's keep in mind what I just said about all this stuff with airplanes, right? The same year, the Twin Towers were completed. Tower 1 was completed in the year 1972. If you guys can't put the connections, you can't realize what's going on here, then I don't know what to tell you. But Tower 1 was completed in that year. There's pictures of it. You can look it up. It was also considered the tallest building in the world. 1972 was the longest year in history. Type that in. Type in 1972. Why 1972 was the longest year in history? It's insane. And then there's some other things too, international things that happened, like the Japanese soldier. I don't know if you guys know this story. There was a Japanese soldier that was in World War II that hid out on an island because he thought that there was still he thought the war was still going on, and he was there for 28 years. You remember that story of that Shijoji or whatever?
Yeah, he showed up on Gilligan's Island once too.
1972. That's when they found him. Can you believe that? That's just insane.
Yeah.
The world's highest fall without a parachute was in 1972. A woman named Vanessa Volkig or something like that. She was Russian. She wasn't even supposed to be on an airplane, believe it or not. She wasn't even supposed to be on an airplane, and they told her just come on, get on, and she went in, and she was a stewardess, and they said, yeah, you can work today. And she got on that plane, and the plane blew up in the air, and it went down, and everybody else fell out of the plane. She's the only person that remained inside the plane because the cart came back and smashed her into the back of the plane, and the plane fell and hit the ground in such a way that she survived. And it's considered the highest fall in the world with somebody actually surviving. Wow. And she fell in this back of this plane. That happened in the year 1972. By the way, Hobby Lobby, 1972. Which I just found out the other day. It's just insane, guys. There's no way. So let me sum this up real fast so people, and there's even a ton more stuff, and I don't really I haven't really added everything in, but just so people can understand, I want you to take a step back. I want you to look at all of these things that are significant points in history that have changed everything. Your currency, 9/11, we know that changed everything. Anthony Fauci, both presidents, Biden and Trump, everything that has happened, the chemical warfares, nukes, all that stuff, the water, all these things. Take a step back and just look at the list, guys. Just look at it. And then tell yourself, find a conclusion. If your conclusion is, hey, it's possible all these things happened in 1 year. They all could have happened in that 1 year. Or if you take a look at it and say, that is kind of weird. I don't know why. How is it possible? How is it possible all those things happened in 1 year? Then you're going to start realizing that there's time hack. Something happened. Somebody went in time and they squished it all in there. And I believe that aliens did this. It's alien technology.
It could very well be. It could very well be. Now, I just looked up something that I was curious about. The number one toy of 1972, and that was Uno, the game Uno, which is still around today.
Uno means one.
Right. And let's go back.
One.
Let's go back to the top three songs. The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face by Roberta Flack. First time ever I saw your face, like you're taking your mask off.
That's the first time, yeah. One, taking your mask off.
Alone Again, Naturally.
Mm-hmm. That's what's happening with the separation, right? The people staying away from each other.
And then American Pie by Don McLean, where America is
changing
to be. It's changed completely. Doesn't even resemble itself. Yeah.
I'll give you my quick list of 1972 songs. Steely Dan's "Reeling in the Years." That song came out in 1972, which was the longest year in history. So then, reeling a year. Pink Floyd's song "Time" came out in 1972, longest year in history. Elton John's song "Rocket Man," last time they went to the moon. Deep Purple song "Smoke on the Water." Well, when I said when the solar flares went off and blew up all those bombs on the water, I mean, the song is not about that. It's about something else. But it's just the fact of the name, "Smoke on the Water." That was and they're talking about all these bombs. It's just insane. Johnny Nash's song "I Can See Clearly Now" came out in 1972. He died in 2020. Bill Withers' song "Lean on Me" came out in 1972. He died in 2020. "Lean on Me," it was like it's just insane. Pink Floyd's song "Brain Damage" came out in 1972. Clockwork Orange movie came out in 1972. I mean, I don't even remember them saying that Trump was Orange Man bad until he ran for office. Then all of a sudden it becomes Orange Man bad, right? And then the same year, 1972, when he was under investigation for housing discrimination, and who called him the Orange Man bad? All the people who were saying he was racist. Those were the people. I remember the people who were saying, "Oh, he's a racist," and all of a sudden it came out Orange Man bad. Well, look, then the movie came out in 1972 in America. It came out Clockwork Orange. The movie America First came out in the year 1972. Just the name, America First. What did Trump always say? America First, right? 1972. Yep. 1972, the movie The Godfather came out. Francis Coppola Jr. said he knew Donald Trump before he wrote the movie The Godfather. He knew him. He even taught. There's videos out there of him talking about it. And then he comes out with the movie The Godfather. And by the way, look it up. Anthony Fauci called Donald Trump. He said talking to him was like talking to the Godfather. You can look up on YouTube. You're on the internet and type in Trump and the Godfather. You see a ton of stuff showing it. Trump is like this Godfather and stuff. And guys, I don't choose a side. So if you're hating me, you're hating yourself. It has nothing to do with me. I'm just giving you the information. The Eagles song "Take It Easy" was in 1972. That's about a man who's got all these women all over the place. Well, 1972 is when child support went into effect. 1972 is when it was last time it was illegal for an abortion. So it's just, and then the song "Witchy Women" came out. "Witchy Woman" by the Eagles came out in 1972. Pink Floyd's song "Money" came out in 1972. Pink Floyd's song "Brain Damage" came out in 1972. Oh, I said that one. David Bowie's song "Starman" came out in 1972. We talked about that. And "Dark Side of the Moon" by Pink Floyd. So it's just insane. It's insane.
It is. It is. Well, we're coming up on 2 hours here, so I think we should probably wrap it up. I want to thank you, RatX and 1010, for coming on to the Truth Quest. Really enjoyed it. It's got me thinking about 1972. I was 10 years old back then, wearing my bell-bottom pants, getting stuck in my chain all the time on my bike. It was not a good idea.
Wiping boogers in your corduroys and trying to scratch them out of there.
I did not like corduroys because you made noise when you walked. But yeah, bell bottoms were definitely in. Well, thank you, RatX, for coming here and enlightening us and giving us this interesting perspective. I don't think anybody prior to this that's watching here thought about the year 1972 as it relates to 2020. But as you point out, there's lots and lots of correlations. And let's tell the folks, and I'll put it in the description, a link to your video channel. What's your video channel on YouTube?
Okay, so I have 2 channels, but you can just go to RatX172, and then you can see the link to my other channel on there. But yeah, it's
RatX at 172?
Yep.
All right. All right. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you having me on. I want to tell you this because I'm not stirring your pudding here, but I want you to know that I really enjoy talking to you. And before you go, I never even heard about the Truth Quest, right? Like I was making videos talking about Truth Quest, and then I saw your video and I was like, oh my God, this guy's had Truth Quest going on longer than me. We're going to have to change the name of my journey here on this one thing I'm doing. And then I started watching stuff and I was like, wow, this is good stuff. And I really enjoy your videos. And I think that you actually do choose a very neutral position when you're talking to the guests. And I think that's really cool. That there may be things that you disagree with, but you just sit back and you listen and you find camaraderie. And that is something that's missing in America. And that's what we all need. You're an example. And that's not me stirring your pudding.
Well, I like to try to be a good listener, and you can learn something every day. I learn something new every day. The day that you think you know it all is the day that you don't know it all. So what we know is engulfed by what we don't know. So it's
exactly that's one of the things about being a martial arts instructor. And I tell people all the time, you stop being a good teacher when you stop learning.
Well, thank you, RatX. I really enjoyed it, and thank you, folks, for watching. This is Aaron Moriarty signing off. Till next time, peace in.
Welcome. You can call me RatX, the ultra neutral, the one from 72. Doing more and more research and more digging, it now is more apparent to me that we are in a natural reality dealing with an alien species that has hacked time, and because of that they have left a huge piece of evidence, which is the year 1972, and how that year actually connects to the year 2020, and how I am the only person in the world that is educating people and bringing the message and was able to predict the election in 2020 through great detail, as well as other predictions that also came true that have to do with looking at the year 1972 and the time hack and how it affected the year 2020 and will lead us into civil war, as well as a galactic war that is clearly upon all of us that is coming down. And you'll see that evidence by coming here and looking at the evidence that I present. I'm also going to be teaching you things about about how flying saucers work, things about different alien species like the reptilians, the Anunnaki, and about the Greys. Because I myself had a reptilian experience where my mind was unlocked, and that is one of the great reasons why I'm able to present all of this knowledge. Because up until the year 2017, when my mind was unlocked, not long after that, I was starting to able to see the holes in the reality, see all the connections of the things that were going on that led to a time hack, which tells us learn from them and push forward as humanity, and not to suppress one another and suppress our own species. So if you're ready to have your mind unlocked, if you're ready to receive the message that nobody else in the world is talking about, if you're ready to see the truth, if you're ready to understand and look at the evidence, then welcome to Rat X Files.